3 hours after my flight landed in Peshawar, I was sitting in the shadeward upholstery in the back seat of a smoke-filled taxicab. My driver, a chain-smoking, sweaty little man who introduced himself as Goldman, drove nanocockly and reckless, overriding collisions by the thinnest of margins, all without so as a pause in the instant stream of words sweeping from his mouth. Terrible what did happen to my country. Yar Afghani people and Pakistani people, they are like brothers. I tell you, Muslims have helped Muslims so. I turned me out, switched to a polite nodding mode. I remembered Peshawar pretty well from the few months Baba and I had spent there in 1981. We were heading west now on the Jammu Road, past the cantonment and its lavish, high-walled homes. The bustle of the city burning past me remembered me of a boucher, more crowded version of Kabul. I knew particle of the Kochak, Morha and Chicken Bazaar. Bazaar. Here Hassan and I used to buy chutney deep pedestrians and rickshaws, popping blue smoke, all weaving through a maze of narrow lanes and alleys. Pirate vendors draped in thin blankets sold animals, skin landscapes, carpets, embroidered swells, and copper goods from Rose, and vendors rang in my ears, mingled with the blare of hiding music, the stirring of rickshaws, and the jingling of bells of horse-drawn carts. Rich scents, both pleasant and so not pleasant, drifted to me through the passenger window, the spicy aroma of pakora and the neewer Baba had loved so much, blended with the singing of diesel fumes and the stench of rot garbage and feces. A little past the red brick buildings of Bashar University, we entered an area in a glamorous driver referred to us as Afghan town. I saw sweet stops and carpet vendors, Kabul stalls, kids with dirt cake hands selling cigarettes, and tiny restaurants map of Afghanistan painted on their windows, all interlocked with opening business, but most of them very poor. He tasked his tongue and single. Anyway, we were getting close now. I thought about the last time I had seen Rahim Khan in 1981. He had come to say goodbye the night Baba and I flew Kabul. I remember Baba and him embracing of the foyer, crying softly. When Baba and I arrived to the U.S., he and Rahim Khan keep in touch. They will speak for hours 5 times a year, and sometimes Baba will pass me to receiver. The last time I had spoken to Rahim Khan, he had shortly after Baba's death. The news had reached Kabul and he had called. We had only spoken for a few minutes and lost the connection. The driver pulled up the narrow building to a busy corner where two winding streets intersected. I paid the driver, took my long suitcase, and walked up to the intricately covered door. The building had wooden balconies with open shutters from many of them. Laundry was hanging to dry in the sun. I woke up. The creaky stairs to the second floor. Down a dim hallway to the last door on the right, checked to address on the piece of stationery paper in palm, knocked. Then a thing made of skin bones pretending to Rahim Khan opened the door. A creative writing teacher. At some Jose State used to say about clinches. Avoid them like a plague. A plague. Then he laughed at his own joke. The class laughed along with him, but I'd always thought cliches got bad rap, because often they are read on. But the aptness of the critic says is overshadowed by the nature of sayings of a cliche. For example, the elephant in the room, saying nothing, could more correctly describe the initial moments of the reunion with Raimkan. We sat on the wispy mothers set along the wall, across the window overlooking the noisy street below. Sunlight, sunlight sat in a cast triangle with which of light onto the Afghan rung to the floor. Two folding chairs rest against one wall, and a small copper smoker sat in opposite corner. I asked a tea from it. How did you find me? I asked. It's not difficult to find people in America. I bought a map of US and I called up information for cities in North California, he said. It, it's wonderfully strange to see you as a grown man. I smiled, I smiled and dropped 3 sugar cups of my tea. He liked his black and bitter. I remembered. Baba didn't get the chance to tell you about I got married 15 years ago. The truth was, by then, the cancers in Baba's brain had made him forgetful, negligent. You are married? To whom? Her name is Soraya Diary. I found her back home, worrying about me. I was glad. I was glad she wasn't alone. Terry, was there she? I told him, his eyes bright. Oh yes, I remember now. It's General Terry married to Sharif Jan's sister. Was her name? What was her name? Jamila Jan. Ballet, he said, smiling. I knew Sharif Jan in Kabul long time ago before he moved to America. He's been working in the ENS for years. ANS for years. Handles a lot of Afghan cases. Hey, he said, do you and Jan have children? Nay. Oh, he supplied his tea and didn't ask more. Ryan Khan had always been one of the most inspective people I have ever met. The conversation inevitably turned to the Taliban. It is as bad as I heard, I said. Nay, it's worse, much worse, he said. They don't let you be a human. They point to a scar above his right eye cutting a crowding path through his bushy elbow. I was at the soccer game in Ghazi Stadium in 1998, Kabul against Mazariev. I think, by the way, the players weren't allowed to wear shorts. Instant exposure, I guess. He gave a tired laugh. Anyway, Kabul scored a goal and the man next to the cheered loudly. Suddenly his young bird fellow who was patrolling the isles, 18 years old at most by the look of him, he walked up to me and struck me on the forehead with the butt of his Kalashnikov. Do that again, I will cut your tongue, you old donkey, he said. Ryan Khan rubbed the scar with the wrinkled finger. It was old enough to be his grandfather, and it was sitting here, blood gushing down my face, apologizing to the son of the dog. I poured him more tea. Ryan Khan talked some more. Much of it I know already, some not. He told me that, as arranged between Baba and him, he had lived in Baba's house since 1981. This is new about. Baba had sold the house to the Rahim Khan shortly before he and I fled Kabul. The way Baba had seen in those days, Afghanistan troubles were only temporary interruption of our way of life. The days of parties at the Wizir Akab Khan house and picnics in the Paham will certainly return. So he didn't. So he. 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 He didn't give the house to Ryan Khan to keep watch over until that day. Ryan Khan told me when the Northern Alliance took over Kabul between 1992 and the 1990 and 1996, different factions claimed different parts of Kabul. If you went from the Shah-e-Num section to Karat Parade to buy a carpet, you would risk getting shot by a sniper or getting blown by the rocket. If you get past all the checkpoints, that was. You practically need a visa to go from one neighborhood to another, so people just stay put prior to the next road and you will hit their home. He told me how people knocked holes in the walls of their homes so they would bypass the dangerous streets and would move on to block from hole to hole. In other parts, people move about in underground tunnels. Why didn't you leave? Kabul was my home. It still is, he snickered. Remember the street that we went from the house to Oshila to military barracks next to Istakil school? Yes, it was the shortcut to school. I remember the day that Hassan and I crossed it and the soldiers had tased Hassan about his mother. Hassan had cried in the cinema later, and I put an arm around him. When the Taliban rolled in the alliance out of Kabul, I actually danced on the street. Rahim Khan said, and I believe me, I wasn't alone. People were celebrating at the chant at the mosque, crying to the Taliban in the streets. The constant fighting started of the rockets, the gunfire, the explosions started of watching Gulbuddin and his cohorts firing on anything that moved. The Allies did more damage to Kabul than the Sahara. They destroyed your father's orphanage. Did you know that? Why, I said, why would they destroy an orphanage? I remember sitting behind Baba the day that happened that they opened the orphanage. The wind had knocked off his curl hat and everyone was loud. They stood on the clap when he delivered his speech. And now it was another pile of rubble. All the money Baba had spent, all those nights he had sweat over the blueprints, and all the visits to the construction site to make sure every brick, every beam, every block was laid just right. Collateral damage, Rahim Khan. You don't want to know, Amirjan, but it's like sifting through the rubble of that orphanage. They were body parts of children. So when the Taliban came, they were heroes, Rahim Khan says. Peace at least. Yes. Hope is a strange thing. Peace at least, but at what price? A violent cutting fighting group took Rahim Khan and the wreck of his gunned body back to the fort. When he spat into his handkerchief, it immediately stained red, and I thought that it was a good time as many to address an elephant sweating with us in the tiny room. Who you are? I asked. I mean, really, who you are? Dying actually, he said in the groaning voice. Another round of cawing, more blood and more handkerchief. He wiped his mouth, but his sweat through one of those waist temple to the another with his sleeve, and give me a quick glance. When he nodded, I knew he read the next question on my face. Not long, he breathed. How long? He struggled cut again. I don't think you will see the end of this summer. Get to the home with me. I can find you a good doctor. They are coming up with new treatments all the time. There are new drugs and experimental treatments. We could enroll you in one. I was rambling and I knew it, but it was better than crying, which I probably going to do anyway. He let out a sheaf of laughter, revealing missing lower incensors. It was the most tired laughter I have ever heard. I see America has infused you in the optimism that has made her so great. Uh, that's very good. They are melancholic people. We Afghanistans, aren't we? Often we often we wallow too much in the camcorry and self pity. We give in to loss, suffering, accept it as a fact of life. I have even see it as a even see it as a necessary sending me Sahara. We say life goes on, but I am not surrendering to faith here. I'm being pragmatic. I have seen several good doctors here, and they gave no have given the same answer. I trust them and I believe them. There is such a thing as good as will. A thing as good as God's will. There is only what do you want you don't do, I say. Raim can laugh. You sound like your father just now. I'm missing him so much, but it's cool. It's God's will. American, it really is. He bows. Besides, there is another reason I asked you to come here. I want you to see before I go. Yes, but someone else too. Anything. You know all those years I lived in your father's house after you left. Yes. He wasn't alone for all them. Hassan lived there with me. Hassan, I said, when he was the last time I had spoken his name, those turny old barbs of guilt bore into me once more, as if speaking his name had broken a spell, set them free to turn in me anew. Suddenly, the air of Rahim Khan's little flat was too thick, too hot, too rich with the smell of the street. I thought about writing you and telling you before, but I wasn't sure you want to know what's wrong. What was I wrong? The truth was no. The lie was yes. I settled for something in between. I don't know. He cocked another patch of blood into the handkerchief when he bent his head into the spit. I saw honey-crust sores in his lap. I brought you here because I'm going to ask something for you. I'm going to ask you to do something for me. But before I do, I want to tell you about Hassan. Do you understand? Yes, I murmured. I want to tell you about him. I want to tell you everything. You will listen? I know. The rain can sipped some more tea, roasted in the head against the wall, and spoke.